Hello, my name is Stephanie Popham, and today I'll be presenting to you my Home of the Innocents wine tasting event campaign. So first things first, as every project begins, I researched the company that the project was based around. I knew a bit about my nonprofit of choice before starting the project, but I learned a lot more about them through this process as well. So a lot of what I learned about was, more of who they were, what their mission was, fundraising ideas and events, services that they provided. And after looking through everything and compiling all of this info that I would need, I created my mind map. If you look down there at the bottom left, you can actually see the pages of the research that I did. And that last page, you can actually see one of the previous campaigns that they had done, which kind of inspired me and gave me, a little bit of leverage as to where I was going to go with mine. So the mind map you see here on the right, you see the target audience, the campaign goals, the imagery, and the mood and motion, and this is all stuff that I had compiled after doing the research. So I decided to host a wine tasting event on behalf of the Home of the Innocents. My first poster design was admittedly very rushed, however, it did set me a baseline for the mood that I wanted my campaign to set. Working with Ed, I fine-tuned the layout of this poster, and this helped throw me in the direction that I would take for the rest of this project. If you look there on the left, this is the first poster. You can see that some of the same elements from this poster did actually transition to the final, like the font for the wine tasting event, all the info that you see there on the label on the right, and just the general concept of the grapes, the wine glasses, and just kind of that elegant feel. If you look to the right, the final poster does look a lot more put together. The hierarchy of everything really draws your attention to exactly where it needs to go. The colors all make sense. If you look there on the label itself, you see all the info that you need for the actual event. And if you look at the very bottom, there's actually a barcode, and that QR code down there, it kind of mimics what you would see the barcode on an actual wine glass, but if you scan it, it actually takes you to the webpage of the Home of the Innocents. So this is what the mock-up for the final poster turned out like. As you can see, it's the same final poster that we saw on the previous page, but the mock-up itself is on a concrete wall background. The idea behind this was to try to, cater to a more upscale audience, and the setting, is more of an upscale building with that kind of concrete, elegant feel. So again, trying to target that target audience that we have and have them see the advertisement. Next up was to create a magazine advertisement. The differences from my first draft to my final copy are not nearly as drastic as the poster, but the critique and the changes that were made definitely brought it all together. At first, I didn't think that the purple line worked in the final copy, but the more I looked at it, the more it made sense and it created more of a natural flow for your eyes to follow. This is because the red line that I originally used aggressively pulls your eye back to it while you're attempting to read through the lines of the paragraph. So if you actually look at the first magazine ad on the left, you go initially from the wine tasting event on behalf of the Home of the Innocents, and your eyes immediately go to that red line there on the left. As you try to start reading that first sentence, you get about midway through that line, and you can just, your eyes start pulling you back to that line, and it makes it almost like a fight to finish the rest of that sentence. And the same thing happens in the paragraph below that. You get about halfway through, and it just pulls your eye back without you trying to. The rest of it, it doesn't really affect it too much just because it is, already half on that page, and it just, is more of a natural pull. But I really didn't notice how aggressively that did pull until we made that change. So if you look to the right, first off, the hierarchy makes a lot more sense. Your eyes immediately read wine tasting event without even having to try to read it. And then on behalf of the Home of the Innocents. And that purple from the Home of the Innocents very easily transitions your eyes to the purple line there on the left. And as you start to read through that very first sentence, your eyes easily read this sentence and naturally come back to that next paragraph, and everything flows a lot better through there. The only other difference that we have is if you look at the very bottom, the home of the innocence.org. This layout makes it a lot easier to locate that website, and it draws your eyes to it versus that first one. It's just mixed in with a paragraph, and you can't really tell what it is off the bat of reading it. It says visit this, and instead of just having it in bold pulled away from the rest of the paragraph, and it just makes it more of a natural feel and call out for that website there. Here's the mock-up for the final magazine advertisement. So I did want to point out, just, again, put on the mock-up, it does look really put together and professional at this point. And that header at the top, the contrast of it really does just pop. And so I feel like if someone were flipping through this magazine, this would be a page that would make them, stop and take a look at it and actually read through to see what was happening. I also wanted to point out that the advertisement on the left is actually an advertisement that I had done on a previous project. I just felt like that was fitting due to this being like an ad section of a magazine. And I also wanted to point out that we still kept that same concrete theme for these mock-ups at this point. And again, that's just to cater to that more upper class audience there. After this, I redesigned the web page to match the theme of the campaign. The web pages that were redesigned were the home page, the donations page, and the events page. As you can see, the same theme applies here as well. It's that same blue ombre background with the maroon red, different accents to it as well. So during this process, I referenced the current homepage quite a few times to ensure that all of the info was accurate. I started off each of these redesigns with the desktop versions and then converted that into the mobile version. So if you look to the left, there's the desktop version, and at the very top you see the navigation bar. It's got those two lines of all the different options listed there and the donate button that will take you straight to the donate page. So the rest of that is really just the main activities and events and different things that they have on their homepage, and then the heart of the city since 1880. So that's actually when they were established. If you look over to the right, that is the mobile version of what you're seeing to the left. So you do notice that the navigation bar does split into 3 different lines instead of 2, and that's just because it is more of a compact look there. Everything, it's a smaller screen, has to be smaller. But you do see the rest of the layout. Everything else is consistent with what you see on the desktop version. Next up is the donations page redesign. In all honesty, the donations page is probably my favorite web page that I designed of all of theirs. I feel that everything on this page just perfectly comes together and complements each other. That picture itself and the navigation bar and just kind of everything working together. The rest of the things, it does make sense it is a little bit more busy on their current website, and it's just because of all the different things that they do. But the donations page is just simple, talks about how you can donate and just different ways you can fundraise and things like that. So it's just a lot more neater and was easier to design. So as you can see, the same navigation bar follows throughout, and you'll see that again on the next page as well. But just kind of everything working together here to give you all the information that you need for the donations. The last web page is the events page, and this one mimics the home page. I kept the same look because on their current website, these web pages have very similar information and links, which accounts for why the layout makes sense to keep the same. So again, you see that navigation bar at the top and the banner that pertains to what the page is about, and then the different links at the bottom, which goes to the different events that they have. So like right now they have the outdoor job fair, Heroes for the Home for 2021, and the virtual From Our Home to Yours, formerly Lunch at Home. Here are the individual mockups for each web page. So each of these mockups are broken up by the web page themselves, and they each have both the desktop and the mobile version. So on the left picture, you have the events web page, and again, you see the desktop version and the mobile version. In the center, you see the donations page on both desktop and mobile. And then on the right-hand side, you see the home page, again, both the mobile and desktop versions. So here are the mockups of each web page side by side. So for this specific mockup, I went ahead and used the versions that fit the mockup that they're in right now. So what would be a mobile version of something is on the mobile devices, and the desktop version is on the desktop device. So if you look both at the tablet and the cell phone, those are both mobile versions. The tablet has the donations page, and the cell phone has the mobile version of the events page. And then the computer in the background has the desktop version of the home page. The radio ad was probably one of the more intimidating parts of this campaign, as it was something that I had never done before. I think all in all, this turned out to be a pretty good learning experience, as well as a good ad in and of itself. On the right, you can see the physical script for this ad, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But first, I'm going to go ahead and play you the ad.
Looking for your way to help others in need, or are you wanting to experience new flavors of wine? On October 10th at 6 p.m. in Ballroom B in the Galt House, you can do both by participating in our wine tasting event on behalf of the Home of the Innocents. Get your tickets today for only $20. Expand your palate and give to children who need your support. For more information, call 502-596-1000. That's 502-596-1000. Or visit www.homeoftheinnocents.org today.
So I directed this radio ad, and it was voiced by Lonnie Seacat. If you look over to the right, as I mentioned, the script is there. You hear the orchestra music open up, and the music fades to quiet in the background, and then you hear the script actually being read. And then at the end, you hear the music pick back up and end. So I wanted to mention the music choice. So again, this was geared towards the upper class. So this is why the music and the verbiage throughout that you heard was tailored to that section and sector of people. For the non-traditional advertisement, I chose to do a Snapchat filter. The thought process behind this was so that when people attended the event, they could post about it to promote the event internally and spread the word through social media to their immediate friends. This would not only promote the event, but also be nonprofit at the same time by increasing people's awareness for the cause. On the left, you see the filter itself. As you can see, there's a transparent section below the text that is where the picture from the camera would fall. On the right, you can actually see what the filter would look like when it's in use. Here's the mockup for that Snapchat filter. So if you see, again, there's that wine tasting event text at the top, and then on the bottom, there's the wine bottle, the wine glasses, and the grapes. And one thing that I did want to point out on here is that the label itself at this point has changed, because when you're using this filter, you will be at the event or attending the event. So the information isn't necessarily as important at this point. At this point, it's about promoting the Home of the Innocents, which is why that logo is placed on the label there. So the main three programs that I used for this campaign include Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and Adobe Audition. Firstly, Adobe Illustrator is what I use to build the content itself. For things like the mind map, the original posters, grapes and wine glasses, the posters themselves, the magazine advertisements, the websites, both the desktop and the mobile versions, and the Snapchat filter. Next up is Adobe Photoshop, and this I used for cutting out the background on the Home of the Innocents logo to use throughout the content, as well as the mockups for the poster mockup, the magazine ad mockup, the website's mockup, and the Snapchat filter mockup. Then lastly, I used Adobe Audition for the radio ad. Here I recorded the main audio file for the ad itself, as well as brought in the music for the background. I messed around with quite a few different audio files to find the most fitting music that I had available, and from there I edited the audio files. I think the prep work was just about as time consuming as the actual editing of the audio. This concludes the campaign presentation for the Home of the Innocents, and I hope you all enjoyed the content. Thank you all for your time.